I think you also have to be really honest if there's something really unusual about your life. Like, I went on a second date before I found out that the guy I kissed was a cannibal.
A what?
A cannibal.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. And let me ask you straight off the bat. Are you happy?
I'm very happy.
And what about you, BJ?
Yeah, actually, I love the Dalai Lama's definition of happiness. Have you heard this one? Happiness is wanting what you already have. And I just love that. It's so simple. But yeah, from that point of view, I do. I love what I have.
How long did it take you to get here?
Took me 7, 8 years.
Okay, so you were married for, sorry, you were divorced for 3 years, you were separated for 7 before that. How long were you married for?
15.
So take us through the point when you realized that the marriage was done to when you are now sort of living this big, full life.
It was very difficult. I hid who I was. I didn't present myself as a single person. I had a 13-year-old son at the time, and it became about protecting him.
And when did it switch?
After, honestly, I was driving with my son when he moved to Boston. He got drafted into some hockey league, and he goes, "Mom, you're so pretty. You should date." And then that was the permission I needed.
When did you know that you were ready to start dating?
I'd say I was ready right away.
Okay.
But dating, I had different needs around dating. My first date was really like, what's it even like to be with another woman after 14 years of being with one.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I was at this party in Malibu, and I met someone. And it was the first time that legally or in a kosher way something could happen.
Yeah.
And it was exciting just to even kiss somebody.
Yeah.
But again, I wasn't coming from a place of years of repressed sexuality either.
Right.
So for me, it was more the newness of meeting someone else and feeling chemistry with someone else and allowing that to happen and being flirtatious and having fun. Like, that was more important than my need for sex. After 14 years with somebody, and my wife and I, as I mentioned earlier, like we did have a strong sexual connection, and there was real strong chemistry there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that newness and that spark. So there's something very validating too around having a pretty woman, in my case, who's into me and thinks I'm cute and nice and generous and mirroring that back to me. What I'm finding is my guys who are like me, who are in their late 40s or 50s, who get divorced, they're amazed when whether she's a 28-year-old or a 38-year-old or a 55-year-old, but when someone's like, "Oh my God, you're awesome, you're gorgeous, you're like come here."
Yeah.
That is
raw
so,
energy, of course.
Yeah, they're just like, "I'm in heaven."
You are who you are. You're probably looking better because you're feeling more confident and therefore attracting that same energy. Is that what you found?
My girlfriend and I, we both, one of the things that we did was, this is the age of the selfie. Right?
Yeah.
And we took pictures of ourselves.
I love it.
And we had learned our angles, things I never paid attention to.
Yeah, I mean, things, by the way, 16-year-olds are doing today.
Yeah, I'm a low-maintenance woman. So for me to do something seemingly as narcissistic as like looking at myself and taking my pictures, I was in a place where I needed that. I needed to feel pretty to me. And it was, again, you can look at it as a narcissistic thing, but that was one of the most important things I did to get confidence in myself, was not to have a man tell me I was hot, but for me. And the name of my friend and I ended up journaling about it so much that we turned it into a book, and we named the book "I Didn't Know I Was So Hot." So a little thing like that was one of the very first steps that I took to get the confidence to be secure with myself.
Yeah.
Because looks, I'm over 50, and looks become a bigger deal.
Just anecdotally, because I know you guys and I haven't done the research on this, how many marriages do you think could be saved if people did a better job of expressing their desire, expressing their appreciation, really giving each other, because whether or not you express it like your ex-wife, everybody needs to be validated. as human beings.
I guess the corollary of that is so many married couples that I see, I'm at dinner, it's painful when my friends, the man's talking and the woman's literally rolling her eyes at what he's saying, which is the opposite of
that's that.
Yeah, that's your first clue that you're going to have some issues.
That's the worst, and it's so painful. And it's so painful for both of them.
That's a level of toxicity that I think marriages slide into when there is a continued lack of expression.
Because here's what I'm seeing a lot of, even just this last week, is anniversaries and these couples, friends of mine, on Facebook or Instagram. This is the man I love, and it's 15 years, and he is my best, and he's always been my rock.
We have 2 kids and a puppy.
And you know, like, they don't have sex, they hate each other. I do definitely think that most marriages suffer from a lack of appreciation and kindness and attraction and sharing that, and specifically tying that into sexual relationships. Because it's not just enough, I don't think, for these men or women to be broadcast on social media how much they love each other when they go to sleep with their back to each other in the bedroom. So so the flip side now after divorce and dating is the only reason, if we're dating, the only reason you're going to come on a second date with me if there's something here for you, and the only reason I'm going to see you if there's something there for me. So dating is just full of just richness and aliveness and attraction and interest. And now, not that every date is great if there's a shitty first date, but then that's it, it's done. Like, anyone who really loves themselves and thinks that they're hot isn't going to stand for some shitty date with someone and go back for a second one, hopefully.
Well, I was afraid to be alone. I think that's a typical older
That's a very common one. That's a bit older, anybody. Anybody.
I had no idea that I would be okay.
You're gonna be okay, Finny?
Oh, it's great.
You're gonna be more than okay.
I still preferred there to be humans around me, but it doesn't have to be a man. It could be my son, it could be my girlfriends.
So it doesn't have to be that one romantic relationship either. It sounds like your
friends
can fill
if I have that, that's great and positive. But I didn't think I was going to be okay alone, and I'm more than okay.
But it was more just the pain and sadness of divorce rates. And what does it mean? Like, if we couldn't pull it off, because I think my wife and I were great candidates, but if we can't pull it off, what does that mean about mankind, humankind? What does it mean about men and women? Like, all of that. Dating for me was probably one of the biggest medicines or...
I have noticed a lot of gusto for life in men that I'm seeing to want to get out, and like, we're all getting a little bit older too. I think your friends, some people are getting sicker, and we start to hear about death more, and so life is short.
That's true. Let's talk about the kids. What works? What's protocol in terms of, I have kids, I want to date people with kids. What happens when you throw in the little people? Does it all just explode?
I know.
You've got younger kids, right?
Well, my kids, so when I first started dating, like, my son was 8 and my daughter was 12.
Tricky, very tricky
13.
ages, no?
But I personally, them dealing with the divorce was enough. And them thinking, actually at one point I had Bumble or something, my notifications were on. And they were popping up, and my daughter was seeing them, and like, that's not cool. And that was a real wake-up call for me of like, she doesn't even want to think about that right now. Like, she's still just dealing with school and friends and 2 homes and all that. So I personally have chosen a very, like, I didn't introduce anyone to my kids, and the last thing I would want is a revolving door and women
of
like,
course,
oh, meet Finny. Oh, this is Kaamna. 2 weeks later, like, that was I went the opposite way. They're not even going to meet someone
unless it is
until
Finny and Kaamna, because we're fucking fabulous.
Well, you two would be like such as, but so I had a very closed door policy, like, don't ask, don't tell. But then years later, I remember my daughter being like really happy, seeing me happy with somebody, and she really embraced the first woman that, so in 4 years of being single, they've met 2 women that I've dated.
What I think is so lovely about both of you, because you both mentioned this, is that your children gave you that encouragement at some point. And I mean, I think that's something that other people out there can be hopeful for. That's that after the process and, you know, and everybody's kind of dealt with the implications of what's happened, that ultimately your children do want you to be happy. And so take heart in that.
And conversely, the biggest thing, it's really not divorce that hurts kids, because I do a lot of work with kids from that psychological perspective, but it's the shit talking about the other parent through the kids that's the most damaging. Yeah. But if the parents can come to the... I remember when my parents told me they were getting divorced, I literally was like, it's about time. Yeah. Like, why now?
Mine was a similar experience.
I mean, literally, it was like, why didn't this happen earlier? It was so obvious to me. And so... I wasn't just, it was uncomfortable and it was a transition, a lot of unknown, which is difficult and challenging as a kid, but ultimately it was a relief. It was like, oh, Mom, I want you to go be happy. Dad, I want you to go be happy. And
I made a point to my mom actually a few years ago about, because I have a lot of friends getting divorced just this year, and they have all done stellar jobs with their children, with their partners. And I told her, I was like, we're actually getting really good at divorce, for better or
it's conscious uncoupling.
I mean, without the smarminess of Gwyneth Paltrow sitting on your right shoulder, sure. But the idea is we're not happy. This is not working for each other. So let's do it right for ourselves. Let's do it right for our children. And, you know, Mom is helping that. They do some version of nesting in the beginning where, you know, they keep the children and then they work through those transitions. Mom is helping Dad pick out bunk beds for the kids' rooms in his house. You know, they still have family dinners together. And it's, I think it's wonderful. I think those kids are going to be just fine. Talk about throwing in the ex. So when you're dating somebody, is your ex even a factor? Do you call them and be like, hey, you know, been seeing somebody 6 dates now. How does it work?
No, 0. There's no knowledge share there. No knowledge share going on.
Is there some obligation in the beginning or some requirement? Let's say, I mean, you're about a solid 10 years into your separation and your divorce. Do you remember in the early days, was that something that you felt compelled to do?
Oh, I was always hiding. Okay. Like I said, my biggest problem in the early days was not being honest with myself, much less, you know, sharing what was going on in my life with my ex. Yeah, we were just very, very committed to co-parenting. Right. And like you were saying, it makes a difference if the agreement we made was he couldn't see us happy together, let's let him see us happy apart. Yeah.
I'm one of those, I'm really not interested. I want her to be happy. Yeah. And if that means dating, that's great. But the agreement was more around, are you bringing people you're dating around the kids? That's the part that we need
that you need to
negotiate. And both of us really felt strongly that the kids have enough that they're digesting without that. And so we were pretty honorable around keeping that separate.
What do you think are the biggest differences for men and women when you go out from a married state into a divorce state?
I have a rule I set because this happened so many times, was that men who are separated and not yet divorced are not really good partners for me. I feel like I've gotten caught in a number of unhealthy situations where they just weren't sure who they were yet, because they were still separated. And this might be true about women too. I don't know, because I haven't dated a separated woman.
Oh, you gotta put that on your list.
Yeah, no, just kidding. The rule I set was I would like to be someone who's been out of their relationship for at least a year. And I might miss out on some great people that way, but I'm at a point where I kind of want to fly. I want to travel. I feel pretty good about where I'm at in my life, and I'd like to be with someone else who is really solid and secure in themselves and knows what they want.
Well, what comes to mind hearing you both talk about that is I do think dating in itself, a big part of the process, at least for me, but I think most people who date, is really rediscovering myself. Like the last time I was single, I was 28. You know, now all of a sudden I'm 44, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of discovering myself and what is it that I like. I wasn't able to really clearly articulate.
Well, and there could be the perfect person for you at that point is someone else who's just looking for fun, right?
Sure.
Yeah. What about friends and family? Is that typically, I often find we'll be at a party and somebody will be like talking to the divorced friend, and all the married people want to do is get that person paired up. Hey, I have a friend who has, who is single and has a penis. Hey, I have a friend who has a penis and a dog.
I personally had quite a few people wanting to set me up right away.
Yeah.
And I basically said no to all of them for a couple reasons. One was, as I was in that self-discovery process, I didn't want to date within my social network. Really? I really didn't. Like, I didn't want, because I knew, like, I'm getting back on my feet and I'm going to stumble. And I don't even know what I want.
You don't want them all talking about you because that tends to happen.
I don't want that. I need that. Like, all of a sudden, I'm, someone who's really important in my community, and I'm dating them and floundering around and misleading them because I think I want travel, but actually, you know what? I don't have time to travel. Today, even just 4 years into it, I'm much more clear today around my bandwidth, capacity for dating, what I really have to offer someone. Like, I'm much more clear today than I was 3 years ago or even 2 years ago.
Have you been using, you mentioned that you were using some online.
Oh, yeah.
Which ones are you having more success with?
Bumble.
Okay. It's not casual encounters on Craigslist.
Yeah.
I think
that's why I had more success.
I think a key thing too is that Bumble, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually need to have a Facebook page and it goes through Facebook. But something like Tinder, I could put a picture of you up on Tinder and act like I'm Jody with your photo on. Like, it's really scary.
Unless that person is better looking than you, richer than you, better in bed than you, then I say let it run.
That's scary. And that actually is kind of an interesting point around dating too. And I'd say a harder part is that I'm born and raised in San Francisco, and I know a lot of people around here. Yeah. And it is exposing to be on Bumble.
Absolutely.
And like every single woman who's on Bumble now knows I'm single, so there is this interesting kind of shadowy downside of that. And then all of a sudden maybe I'm showing up on a college campus, talking or lecturing or something, and someone in the audience is probably like, dude, I saw you on Bumble. It's so weird. I don't know that it's wrong, but to me, it's exposing in a way. And I don't really want my junk out there like that, and so it's kind of interesting.
Is your junk on Bumble?
No. That's got to be interesting. So you're almost close enough to your son's age where feasibly, if he expanded his age range aperture enough, you guys could connect on Bumble.
Up on Bumble.
Right? That's scary.
That is scary.
My mind will not
now,
go there.
I could be like my daughter may see me come up on her.
Take it away.
I have a game for you guys.
Okay.
I'm going to do divorce myths. So, tell me from your experience, true or false, you should talk about your kids on the first date.
True.
Yeah, just put it all out there up front. Okay,
nothing to hide there.
They're going to find out anyway. Right, got it. Tinder is for serious relationships as well. It's not just hookups and crazy fun sex.
I know nothing about Tinder.
That's right, you're a Bumble girl. What about you, BJ?
I'm more of a bumbler.
But Tinder, all these people bumbling around.
But I have dabbled on Tinder, and there definitely are women out there who are looking for long-term relationships only.
My ex actually just married a woman he met on Tinder.
Well, so there you go. It takes time to build sexual chemistry with somebody new when you've been with somebody for a long time.
About 1 to 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say 2. Okay. 2 minutes.
All right, so you can take that off your list of things to worry about. 1 to 2 to 5 minutes. Perfect. You can spare.
Probably less than 1 minute, actually.
Divorced women are better in bed.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Yeah.
True.
Oh, look at that. Do you think that people who are divorced are more open to non-traditional relationships, like polyamory or open relationships, just because you've kind of, presumably you've done the monogamy thing and it didn't quite work out for various reasons. Do you see that a lot or at all?
I'm only aware of married people that are polygamists. I don't know any single polygamists. Well, actually, I know one, but so I would say no. The divorce itself wouldn't necessarily open you up.
What about you, BJ? What do you think?
That's interesting. I think different. I think in my experience, after people have been divorced and after that the institution of marriage failed them, there's more interest in trying something new, thinking outside the box.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a horror story? Tell people what's out there.
I've got my general rule on horror story, because this to me seems the worst, is if anything, because we're talking about Bumble being in your ex marrying off of Tinder. So the moment that precipitated any date is the moment you see their picture on there. And so I think the biggest horror story is to show up on a date when someone doesn't look like their photo or only has their best angle. If anything, like put your worst angle on your picture.
Maybe not your worst, but find something in between.
Find something reasonable that like
draw them
looks
to the
like
door,
you,
at least.
because there's nothing worse than showing up on a date and being like, oh, you're not at all what you
it just sets the whole thing off.
It's not good. I'd rather have the opposite, right? Like, wow, you look good in your pictures, but you look great in person.
I think you also have to be really honest if there's something really unusual about your life. Like, I went on a second date before I found out that the guy I kissed was a cannibal.
A what?
A cannibal.
Like eats human beings.
Yeah.
And you found this how
I found out.
Take a piece out of your face.
I found out publicly when he announced it in a forum of intellectuals in San Francisco, and everyone turned and looked at me and was like, "She didn't know."
Don't you want to expand your horizons a little?
Oh my God!
Maybe sit down, have a meal with the guy.
I would have a meal with him.
Oh, trust me, my family is.
don't have a meal with him.
My family is still kidding me.
What's the sausage?
So when he's like, "Oh, you're quite a dish," you know exactly what he's thinking. Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Oh, trust me, everyone in my life is still joking.
We started on such a high note. There's so much out there. There's so much goodness, and this is the path you're taking. Just stay away from people that might want to eat you.
Yeah.
Eat your face. That is.
And scammers. There's a lot of scammers.
There's a lot of scammers.
So I mean, women really need to know how to spot a scammer, and you can Google that, and you should teach yourself. I can see one coming from a mile away now, but.
And what are they wanting? What do you mean by a scammer?
They want your money. They're probably in another country. I think the Nigerians get a rep for this, like a Nigerian scammer system.
And are they coming through social media sites? Are they coming through dating sites?
They're coming through dating sites.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah,
so
I date online pretty heavily, and I probably get 1 or 2 a month.
We need to wrap this up really quickly. So give me one piece of advice, both of you, for somebody that is, maybe just newly divorced or has been divorced for a while and is still looking to find themselves, to find that light.
A girlfriend of mine told me this. It's really simple, and it's stuck with me the entire time. It's still with me, and it's 3 simple words: don't get stuck.
I think just the basics of be kind and be honest.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. BJ and Finny are going to give us their resource list, and you can find that at KaamnaLive.com, and we will see you on next week's episode.